We're always hearing about globalisation, how nowadays we all live in the same global village. But in business terms, just how true is that? How easy, for instance, is it for a company here in the UK to set up in, say, Asia or Africa and carry on operating exactly as it does over here? Well, here at Warwick Business School, they've been doing some interesting research into that very area. And with me is the man heading that research, Professor Nigel Pearcey. Professor, what exactly have you been looking at?
Well, our research has been focused on the front end of organisations, the sales organisation, and we've been looking at the management characteristics of high-performing sales organisations, both here and abroad.
Of course, in that book last year, Thomas Friedman suggested that the world is flat, that businesses are the same the world over. Do you agree?
Well, that's interesting, because in the sales and marketing area, we've always been told that because this is where we meet customers, this is where you have to adapt to local conditions, local cultures, local ways of doing business. So what we did in the sales research was to compare a range of countries, including the UK and Austria and Europe, but a number of lesser developed countries, and see if the drivers of effectiveness are the same. And the surprising finding is that by and large, they are. So Friedman's got a point.
So what advice would you give to British companies thinking of setting up abroad?
By and large, the lesson seems to be that you need to adapt far less than we thought to achieve effectiveness. The only exception being extreme differences in cultural characteristics, which we know about, and extreme differences in economic wealth. But the large middle ground, most of the approaches we've developed in Europe and the US, seem to work in quite different cultural contexts.
And where can companies go to get the information they need on those cultural differences?
Cultural characteristics of countries are widely publicised on the web, and you can spot if there are things like high power differences between your own country and the overseas market you're attacking, or if there are significant differences in risk aversiveness and so on. But I say the most surprising thing in the research was the degree of similarity in what works rather than the degree of difference.
You say the world is fairly flat. Is it getting flatter still?
Well, I think Friedman probably takes it too far, and there is other research suggesting you don't want to be lulled into a false sense of complacency. There are international differences. So I think what we probably conclude most validly into the sales research is the world is flattening, but it's not yet flat.
But the world would be very boring if business were the same all over the world.
Well, as a professor of business, obviously, I have to say that business is never boring, but international differences are there, but they're not as significant to management approaches and structures as we think they have been in the past.